The Silmarillion is a book that is chock full of power couples, and for this video that is a phrase I use quite literally. We have couples with unique yet complementary skill sets who seem to complete each other in a holistic sense. Couples that are bound by a fairy tale-esque, almost idealized version of love. And we have couples with imperfect and sometimes tragic stories. And today we are going to be talking about one of those couples. Not really tragic, but you get the point. Hello everyone, and welcome to part 3 of my series covering the history of Arda as told in the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. In the first part of this series, we talked about the creation of Arda in the Ainulindale, as well as the various Valar and Maiar powers who stepped into this creation in the Valaquenta. And in the last video, we talked about the beginning of days, the spring of Arda, and the formation of Valinor. And of course, that included the creation of the 2 trees of Valinor and the beginning of the Count of Time. And if you haven't watched those videos yet, I absolutely recommend doing that first, because these videos kind of build off one another using names and vocabulary that we talked about in previous entries of the series. And so I have the playlist linked in the description down below, but if this video specifically is what you're looking for, then you have come to the right place. For today, we are going to be talking about one of the first couples in the history of Arda, and how Tolkien used them to illustrate a loving yet imperfect union. And that, of course, is the marriage of Aulë and Yavanna. Like all of the Valar, Aulë and Yavanna were both Ainur spirits during the Song of Creation. And each spirit brought their own unique voice to the song. But the songs of Aulë and Yavanna were entwined very closely with one another. From Aulë came the shape and form of the earth, all of the substance beneath the earth, including the gems and precious metals in the deep. And Yavanna, the giver of fruits, was responsible for all of the things that grow upon the earth. Their passions were not only linked, but they were intrinsically reliant on each other. And so it is no wonder that the 2 became one of Middle-earth's original power couples. A union between the earth and the life that covers the earth. Today is all about Aulë and Yavanna, and how the actions of one of these 2, not saying who, despite coming from a place of love, jeopardized the union that these 2 share. And how once again, in a tale as old as time, a simple problem could have been solved with a little bit of healthy and honest communication. And how this conflict had repercussions that would echo out into their creation for millennia to come. It is a very interesting tale, so stick with me as we dive into Chapter 2 of the Quenta Silmarillion, the story of Aulë and Yavanna. Thank you so much for watching, and let's get into it. The story begins with the Valar Aulë, master craftsman and lord of the substance of the earth. Like his fellow Valar, Aulë was very excited for the coming of the children of Ilúvatar, a term referring to elves and men, the offspring of Ilúvatar himself. The Valar had spent untold eons shaping the land of Arda, creating a paradise for these children, but Melkor, a Valar who was disjoined from the Valar, kept destroying this paradise that they were trying to make, because he wanted total dominion over all the earth. The Valar did not know when the children of Ilúvatar would come, only that they were coming. And so they hastened to build a paradise for them, but it had been eons and eons, and there was no sign of them. And so Aulë grew impatient with this waiting. He desired companions with which to share his knowledge and love of artistry and craftsmanship. He loved making things, and he wanted someone to impart that knowledge onto as well. And so he took it upon himself to create beings with which he could share this knowledge. In the beginning, after the Ainulindale, the Song of Creation, Ilúvatar had shown them a vision of the coming of the children of Ilúvatar. This is how they know that they're coming. And Aulë had seen this vision, however, that had been forever ago, and the image was not perfect in his mind. And so, in a vast cavern in the heart of Middle-earth, Aulë crafted his own people, and he made them tough and resilient, so they might be able to resist the wrath and the deceptions of Melkor. And this, in the history of Middle-earth, is how the Dwarves came to be. made as hard and resilient as the stone, made similar to the image of the children of Iluvatar, but not identical, for Aulë's memory of the children of Iluvatar was imperfect. And so in this cavern he created the 7 original dwarf lords. And the most important aspect of this story of the creation of the dwarves is that Aulë kept this project a secret, even from his wife. But Aulë saw these people that he had made and was extremely proud of the work that he had done. And he began to teach them language so that they might be able to learn other things from him. But you know who immediately knew that Aulë was creating an entirely new group of people in secret? That's right, Eru Iluvatar. Turns out the depths of the earth are not God-proof. See, the Valar are capable of immense acts of creation and formation, but the creation of life, the creation of creatures with souls, is only possible through the flame imperishable, a power that is only held by Eru Iluvatar. And the dwarves were made without this flame, and we will see the ramifications of that in a minute. But Eru sensed this act of rebellion and spoke immediately into the mind of Aulë and reprimanded him. And the voice of Iluvatar said to him, "Why hast thou done this? Why dost thou attempt a thing which thou knowest is beyond thy power and thy authority? For thou hast from me as a gift thy own being only, and no more. And therefore the creatures of thy hand and mind can live only by that being, moving when thou thinkest to move them. And if thy thought be elsewhere, standing idle. Is that thy desire?" What is hitting my window? Hang on. It's not raining, is it? Oh, it is. Yeah, guess whose weather forecast said he's stuck with a week of rain? Manwë hates me. See, while Aulë made the dwarves with good intention, he did violate Eru's will. And that was that the children of Iluvatar be the first to awaken in the earth. And his actions have had unintended consequences. Without the flame imperishable, Aulë is incapable of making true life. What he had made instead were puppets, things that had no will of their own, only moving according to the will of their master. And if Aulë should turn his thought to other things in the earth, then these creations would remain still, machines with no programming. Just like Melkor, Aulë had overstepped his authority. But Aulë was not like Melkor. He did not desire lordship or domination over these creatures he had made, and so he pleads his case to Iluvatar. Then Aulë answered, "I did not desire such lordship. I desired things other than I am, to love and to teach them, so that they too might perceive the beauty of Ea, which thou hast caused to be. For it seemed to me that there is great room in Arda for many things that might rejoice in it, yet it is for the most part empty still and dumb. And in my impatience I have fallen into folly, yet the making of things is in my heart, from my own making by thee. And the child of little understanding that makes a play of the deeds of his father may do so without thought of mockery, but because he is the son of his father. But what shall I do now, so that thou be not angry with me forever? As a child to his father, I offer to thee these things, the work of the hands which thou hast made. Do with them what thou wilt. But should I not rather destroy the work of my presumption?" He did not seek to dominate or rule these created beings as a god, but rather he just wanted a companion to impart his knowledge and love of making to. He wanted to show them the beauty of this creation. And I absolutely love the metaphor that he uses to describe his actions. He did not intend to thwart Iluvatar's plans out of hatred or jealousy for his gifts as Melkor had. Instead, he describes himself as like a child, imitating the work of his father. Not because he hates his father and thinks that he can do better, but because he loves and admires his father and wants to be like him. Nonetheless, Aulë is overcome with guilt for his hubris. And so, in his shame and desperate for the forgiveness of his father, Aulë takes up his hammer and prepares to smite the dwarves made by his own hands. But Eru sees the heart of Aulë and knows that he never intended to do evil. And so he took pity on Aulë, and with the flame imperishable he breathed life into the dwarves. And the 7 dwarf lords wake up for the first time and look up to see their creator Aulë preparing to destroy them. And so they cower and plea for mercy. And once more Ilúvatar speaks to Aulë. And the voice of Ilúvatar said to Aulë, "Thy offer I accepted even as it was made. Dost thou not see that these things have now a life of their own and speak with their own voices? Else they would not have flinched from thy blow, nor from any command of thy will." Then Aulë cast down his hammer and was glad, and gave thanks to Ilúvatar, saying, "May Eru bless my work and amend it." Eru spares the dwarves and allows them to exist exactly as Aulë had made them, excepting that they are now imbued with the flame imperishable and have life and souls of their own. But he still would not allow this creation to exist before his creation. It is still his will that the children of Ilúvatar awaken first. And so for now the 7 dwarf lords are put to sleep, and Aulë rests them in the hearts of 7 of the great mountains of Middle-earth. But it is clear that there will be consequences and repercussions for Aulë's presumed creation. The children of Ilúvatar will forever find themselves at odds with the dwarves. Not necessarily open warfare, though that is sometimes the case. But the dwarves were made a stubborn people, which is to their benefit, but also to their detriment. And Aulë's punishment is also fitting. He created the dwarves out of his impatience to impart his knowledge to someone. And so now that the dwarves have been put to sleep, he must continue to wait until the awakening of the children of Ilúvatar. And also in this chapter, we get a little bit of speculation on behalf of the elves who are recording this history. We get a description of the dwarves that Aulë had created, as well as speculation as to what happens to them when they die. Because though they are imbued with the flame imperishable now, they were not created by Ilúvatar. The elves, for their part, believe that when the dwarves die, they simply turn into the stone from whence they came. However, among the dwarves, it is believed that Aulë would not allow their souls to perish, while the souls of men and elves are taken to the Halls of Mandos. I mentioned the Halls of Mandos in the first episode of this series. It's basically the Halls of the Dead, but it is a physical location in Valinor. It is where the Valar named Namo dwells and judges the worth of the spirits of the dead. And the dwarves say that when they die, Aulë whisks their spirits to the Halls of Mandos, to a chamber all to themselves. And in the prophesied end times in Tolkien's mythology, a time when the earth is remade and the Ainur and the children of Ilúvatar join in song, the dwarves believe that they will be joined to them as the adopted children of Ilúvatar. And when the earth is remade to perfection, the dwarves will help Aulë in rebuilding the earth. Then they will again take on their ancient names, and the 7 original dwarf lords will be reborn and rule their people. And we'll get to the dwarves later in the history of Arda in the Silmarillion, but I will say for now that the greatest of the dwarf lords that were created in this moment was Durin the First, also known as Durin the Deathless. It is he who, in the heart of the Misty Mountains, built the kingdom of Khazad-dûm, greatest of the dwarf kingdoms. In The Lord of the Rings, when they are walking through the ruins of what is called Moria, Moria is the corpse of Khazad-dûm. There's a lot of history of Khazad-dûm that involves it being destroyed by the forces of Melkor, rebuilt, retaken, invaded, retaken. But by the time of the events of The Lord of the Rings, it is called Moria. But now back to the story. I'm getting distracted. After all of these events had transpired, Aulë finally had the brilliant idea to tell his wife what he did. Babe, you're not gonna believe this. I imagine he walks through the door, he hangs up his coat, takes his pipe out of his mouth, and he's like, I created the dwarves. And so he runs to Yavanna and tells her of the dwarves and of Eru's mercy. And I'm gonna read her response to what he says, but I want you to pay close attention to the wording in the passage. Specifically pay attention to how she responds with love and support, first and foremost, but also is able to voice her concerns in an equally loving way. Then Yavanna said to him, Eru is merciful. Now I see that thy heart rejoiceth, as indeed it may, for thou hast received not only forgiveness, but bounty. Yet because thou hiddest this thought from me until its achievement, thy children will have little love for the things of my love. They will love first the things made by their own hands, as doth their father. They will delve in the earth, and the things that grow and live upon the earth they will not heed. Many a tree shall feel the bite of their iron, without pity. This, in my mind, is healthy communication at its finest. She first celebrates with her husband because there is reason to celebrate. Because Eru was merciful to Aulë, and because he now has an entire people to call his own. But Aulë chose to do this without telling her, and that will have serious effects on the dwarves. Aulë made them with no regard for his wife, and so the dwarves will have no regard for her creation, for the things that grow. These creatures will love the earth and dig deep into its foundations and fell many a tree to fuel their industry. And Aulë basically responds by completely dismissing her concerns. And remember when I was talking about good, healthy, open and honest communication? Yeah, that goes away real quick. I mean, he makes a good point, but still, he could have made it better. But he rightfully points out that when the children of Ilúvatar come, they will also be given dominion over the earth, and they too will, chop down trees, fell plants, destroy the earth. Not destroy the earth, but they will make use of the resources that Yavanna created to just stand there and look beautiful. And this thought, very surprisingly, had not occurred to Yavanna at all, and so she runs to Manwë for counsel and advice. She asks him if this is true, and turns out it very much is. And this makes Yavanna very anxious and very sad. It seems that between Melkor and the children of Ilúvatar that are yet to come, and even the dwarves, nothing that she creates will ever be free of dominion and abuse. To which Manwë asks her that if she could preserve one aspect of her creation, what would it be? What of her creations does she value the most? And in her response, she mentions that her aspect of creation, her part of creation, is divided into two categories, the Kelvar and the Olvar. The Kelvar are the animals, the creatures of the earth, and they can, at least in some part, defend themselves. The Olvar are the plants of the earth, and they are relatively defenseless. And of all the Olvar, she holds trees as most precious to her. All the way back in the Song of Creation, when Ulmo had shaped the clouds and the rains came down, Yavanna had lifted up the trees first to receive them. Manwë hears her plea, and he is brought back to the Ainulindale, to the song that he had heard his brethren singing. And suddenly he hears in that a part of the melody he had not comprehended before. And in perceiving that thread, aspects of creation yet unknown to him were revealed in that moment. And while Manwë is atop his throne at Taniquetil, basically having this divine revelation, Yavanna goes outside the gates of Valimar and sits at the base of the two trees, the most beautiful aspect of all her creation. And that is where Manwë finds her again, and he sits down beside her. He tells her that Eru himself has spoken to him, telling her not to worry. Eru alone comprehended the full melody. Nothing in creation is secret from him. And when the children of Ilúvatar awaken, the full thought of Yavanna will also be awoken. Spirits will awaken and go among the Kelvar and the Olvar to protect them. Even back in the Song of Creation, the melody of Manwë and Yavanna had met in the air. And this thought will take the form of giant eagles, the eagles of the Lords of the West. And yes, these are the legendary giant eagles from the Lord of the Rings movies. The ones that people say they should have just flown to Mordor, but it doesn't work like that. And Yavanna herself marvels at this revelation, and she promises to make great trees for these eagles to nest in. And at this, Manwë stands, and his voice appears to boom out of the sky. He tells her that only the trees of Aulë shall be tall enough to nest these eagles. Of course, the trees of Aulë referring to the mountains. And with this comfort from Manwë, Yavanna once again goes back to Aulë. Then Manwë and Yavanna parted for that time, and Yavanna returned to Aulë, and he was in his smithy pouring molten metal into a mold. Eru is bountiful, she said. Now let thy children beware, for there shall walk a power in the forest whose wrath they will arouse at their peril. Nonetheless, they will have need of wood, said Aulë, and he went on with his smith work. There is love between Aulë and Yavanna, but also tension. The two have differences that now may never be reconciled. And in these final moments between the two, Aulë seems almost indifferent to her desire to preserve her own creation. The two are so similar in that they only have a mind to look out for what it is that they created, thinking that their land is best. Keep that specific phrase in mind for later. If there is one thing that can be comprehended about the plans, the will of Ilúvatar, it's that all of creation reflects back on the nature of Ilúvatar and the Ainur. The Song of the Ainulindale, into which each Ainur poured that part of them that was from Ilúvatar, contained the blueprint for the creation of Arda. And so the unique personalities of these Ainur and their interpersonal relationships were also poured into that creation. And we actually see a very tangible example of this. Yavanna's wish, as we saw, had been granted from the very beginning. Her domain of the natural world would not be unprotected. Creatures would arise to protect both the Kelvar and the Olvar, the plants and the animals of her creation. The great eagles would arrive and protect the Kelvar, the creatures that walk the earth. But who will protect the Olvar, the things that grow, and in particular, the trees? When the children of Ilúvatar awake, the shepherds of the forest will also awaken. The Ents, creatures born from her own thought out of a desire to protect her creation. And just as there was tension between the wills of Yavanna and Aulë, there will also be tension between their creation. The dwarves will need wood to fuel their industry, build tools, build homes. And yet the Ents shall guard their flock from the axes of the dwarves, a marital dispute that bleeds into the fabric of creation itself. And it goes even deeper because the Ents were not awoken alone. Because they had companions in their vocation, the Entwives. Both shepherded the things that grow on the earth, and they were happy for a time. But even there, the tension, the dispute of Aulë and Yavanna continued to bleed into creation. See, the Ents and the Entwives gave their love to different aspects of the natural world. The Ents loved most the trees and the forests of the land, whereas the Entwives gave their love to the smaller plants, to the earth, and to the cultivation of the land. Even thousands of years from this story we are talking about, when Merry and Pippin encounter Treebeard the Ent for the first time. He hears their stories of the Shire, and he knows that the Entwives would have loved this agricultural paradise that the hobbits have made. We busting out the Lord of the Rings for this one. He made them describe the Shire and its country over and over again. He said an odd thing at this point. You never see any Entwives round there, do you? He asked. Well, not Ents. Entwives, I should really say. Entwives, said Pippin. Are they like you at all? Yes. Well, no. I do not really know now, said Treebeard thoughtfully. But they would like your country, so I just wondered. Treebeard is one of the oldest Ents alive at the time of the Third Age, having been alive since the awakening of the elves. There's now a thunderstorm outside, so if the power gets cut out and I lose this whole video, I'm gonna be so mad. And for a long time, he and his wife Fimbrethill lived in peace and love, watching over the fruit of Yavanna for countless ages. But this bliss did not last forever. The Ents and the Entwives began to argue among each other. The Entwives wanted to explore, to cultivate the land and build their own gardens. But the Ents liked their life as it was, in the shade of these great forests, singing to the trees and listening to them sing back. Both cherished the beauty of Yavanna and yet relished in different aspects of it. In the exact same way that Aulë and Yavanna both delighted in the land of Arda, but gave all of their thought and attention to different aspects of it, and could not reconcile that with each other. But unlike the two Valar, this product of their dispute could not reconcile. And eventually the Ents and the Entwives were sundered. They were separated. The Entwives left to find rich land and grow their gardens. The Ents occasionally went out searching for them, but they always came back to the comfort of their own forests, both believing without a doubt one truth about their side versus the other side, and that was that their land was best. Again, Treebeard, speaking of the Entwives and their long separation, sings to Merry and Pippin a song written by the elves from the perspective of an Ent and an Entwife singing to each other. Page 477 if the power doesn't go out. And if it does, then damn, this video's never getting made. I can't delay this recording because the weather people have prophesied a week of rain for us, so this is as good as it gets. When spring unfolds the beechen leaf, and sap is in the bough, when light is on the wildwood stream, and wind is on the brow, when stride is long, and breath is deep, and keen the mountain air, come back to me, and say my land is fair. When spring is come to garth and field, and corn is in the blade, when blossom like a shining snow is on the orchard laid, when shower and sun upon the earth with fragrance fill the air, I'll linger here and will not come, because my land is fair. When summer lies upon the world, and in a noon of gold, beneath the roof of sleeping leaves, the dreams of trees unfold. When woodland halls are green and cool, and wind is in the west, come back to me, and say my land is best. When summer warms the hanging fruit and burns the berry brown, when straw is gold and ear is white, and harvest comes to town, when honey spills and apple swells, though wind be in the west, I'll linger here beneath the sun, because my land is best. When winter comes and winter wild that hill and wood shall slay, when trees shall fall and starless night devour the sunless day, when wind is in the deadly east, then in the bitter rain, I'll look for thee and call to thee, I'll come to thee again. When winter comes and singing ends, when darkness falls at last, when broken is the barren bough and light and labor past, I'll look for thee and wait for thee until we meet again. Together we will take the road beneath the bitter rain. Together we will take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find a land where both our hearts may rest. Aulë's creation of the dwarves had a lasting impact on creation. His creation of life before Ilúvatar's plan came to fruition would lead to generational animosity between the children of Ilúvatar and the dwarves, feuds that would last all the way into the Third Age. But arguably the greater sin of Aulë in this chapter was hiding this creation from his wife. And because of this, the dwarves will have no love or regard for the things that Yavanna loves. Not only did this necessitate the creation of the Ents, but their argument was passed into them. Aulë and Yavanna remained a couple. They were able to reconcile their differences. And already the power is starting to flicker, so we're gonna wrap this up. But the cost of Aulë's dishonesty was ultimately the sundering of the Ents and the Entwives, and the other things that I've mentioned. This is a prime example of how creation works in the Silmarillion. The Ainur were taught the Song of Creation by Ilúvatar, but he encouraged each to add their own voice, their own unique personality to the melody. And so their interests, their passions, and their flaws were all poured into this imperfect creation. From the beginning, the earth and the things that reside on it were inseparable. just like Aulë and Yavanna. Yet their marriage, like any marriage, was not without flaws. And those flaws were manifest in their creation even before creation had come to be, long before Aulë created the dwarves. Not predestination, but inherited traits. Similarly to how habits and behaviors can be passed from parents to children. But that, in a nutshell, is the story of Aulë and Yavanna, the creation of the dwarves, and a marital dispute that bled into the very fabric of creation itself. And with that, before the power goes out, thank you so much for watching. The thunder is calling, the gates are opening, and I am due inside. But before that time, next video will be about Chapter 3, The Awakening of the Elves. I hope you're excited for that. And in channel news, we have surpassed 12,000 subscribers. I've said it before, but it is just as crazy to me now as it was when we first hit that milestone. So thank you all so much for enjoying the videos and for sticking around as I deep dive into these hyperfixations of mine. And if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like, leave a comment if you want, and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be covering the entire Silmarillion going forward. I also have other projects that I'm working on, some that I've talked about and some that I haven't, but the lights are flickering and I really need to wrap this up. But I've got big plans for the channel going forward, and I hope that you will stick around for the journey. But the thunder has been going non-stop for like literally 5 or 10 minutes now. Like I said, the lights are flickering, so I'm gonna go now. But before I do, a huge shout out goes out to the patrons, Sean, Happy the Knife, and the top tier patrons, Artie and Snowy. Thank you so much for supporting me this far, supporting my dream of doing this for you all full-time one day. And if you want to see your name in this video as well as get early ad-free access to these videos before they are posted publicly, then consider joining us on Patreon. All of the rewards of the different tiers are outlined there, but all members get credit at the end of my videos. And I'm still thinking of returning to live streaming at some point, so if you'd watch that, let me know in the comments below and what you might want to see me play. Or just do. We could just hang out. But I'm gonna go before the power goes out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time for the Awakening of the Elves. I hope that you're excited for that, because I know that I am. And cut.